everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday. I'm Liz Frerichs, and this is my husband, Evan.
Hello. Happy Friday. Wait, no, it's not Friday yet. Dang it. Still
Thursday.
Thursday, isn't it? All right. We'll get through this.
Whatever.
Actually, today's a good day.
Today is a good day. So if you're joining us for the first time, we are talking about our Worldview this week. Worldview Week.
That's right. It's a great name, isn't it? I'm sure nobody's ever called anything that before.
I know, it made me laugh when I thought about it. Anyway, so...
More specifically, our worldview.
Yes.
Because we do base a lot of the structure of the show, the daily, the days of the week structure on Tai Chi principles, and we've talked about it quite a bit. So we decided to get into that, and that's what we talked about yesterday. So check that out if you were still wondering about that. But today, we're going to talk about a concept that we both have found very valuable, and that's called chew the meat, spit out the bones.
Yes.
So what does that mean, Liz?
So that means that if you have a plate of meat in front of you,
So literal.
you eat the meat and you don't eat the bones. Or when you get a piece of information, you keep the part that's good and you throw away the part that's not good, regardless of who provides you with the information.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I have been perpetually in awe of is that God can use anybody to bring information into your life.
And that's a biblical principle. I mean,
yes.
You see...
Balaam's donkey.
Yeah, absolutely. Or a pagan prophet or a messenger or a king or something. God uses them.
Saul prophesying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. So I think one of the reasons this principle is so amazing is because we live in information overload. Like 24/7, we're constantly bombarded with information, which we kind of talked about on Tuesday, but kind of the same idea is all truth is God's truth. Like there is truth out there everywhere, and I guess not everywhere,
right,
but truth can be found anywhere.
Yeah, well, one of the tricky things is that the bad guys, the side of evil, they're in the business of distorting truth.
Right.
And the best kind of distortion is one that's only been subtly changed.
Right.
And so, I mean, you see this in the garden where the serpent's like, well, what was the commandment? And Eve didn't repeat it exactly, right?
Right.
And he took advantage of that, and then, but you see that all throughout the Bible. We see it in our own lives where something's mostly true, but then there's this little nuance that's so important, and we swallow the whole thing, and then you've got a bone in your stomach. You should have spit that out.
Yes,
and we need discernment for that. But I wanted to make sure we're clear. Like the root is, I mean, it could be human negligence and not caring, but there's a spiritual side here that is very intentional and very meticulous about what is getting distorted, and there are reasons for it, and it's to derail or prevent our salvation. Right. It's dangerous stuff, and the truth is really important. But sometimes you gotta pick out some bones.
Right. Well, and sometimes you end up with a pile of mostly bones and just a few pieces of meat, but those pieces of meat might be really important. I mean, like we were talking about, I can't remember what day it was, but a couple weeks ago, we talked about Carol Tuttle and how her personality type system has completely transformed our family. I mean, it has helped. Our youngest daughter has the exact opposite personality as I do, and it has helped us relate so much better once we found that out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
and that's not the only personality type system in the world, but for some reason that really resonated with us. Like there's just a lot to it. Like I'm a supporter of it too. But Carol Tuttle is not a Christian.
Some of her and some of her stuff is just, you're like, wow, I really don't even want to touch that, like how to get in touch with your guardian angel and things like that. She's got some stuff out there like that. Yeah. So, and sometimes somebody hands you stuff that's not going to be primarily meat, but they're still, you still don't want to throw away the pieces of meat that are there.
Mm-hmm. And I think especially if you're listening to our show, which you are, I mean, that guy over there is not, but we like to assimilate information, and we're going to talk about the things we're interested in, and it is by no means ever a blanket endorsement of every
Right.
single jot and tittle this person has ever said.
Yeah.
We talk about the things that we like that hold spiritual truth, and the rest, whatever. Those are bones over there.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Because,
they're important enough to mention, in our
yes.
mind anyway.
Yeah, and if honestly, to me, it's a huge warning flag if I were to say I agree with every single thing this person teaches, because that means I've put them in God's place in my life. Like, I'm treating their voice like it is the voice of God and they can say no wrong, Which
Yeah.
is clearly not true. If you're a human being, you're going to make mistakes. You will accidentally preach heresy at some point in your life. Everyone does. It's just the nature of being fallen people.
That's why God in his grace, I think for all of history, or at least most of history, has provided his word directly to his people in their own language. I mean, you can argue the subtleties of that, but yeah, he is trying to have a relationship.
Right.
That's one of the core facets of Christianity.
Right. Which is why we're talking about this on Thursday, which is our day to talk about connection. Because that is the solution right there.
Yeah, and the Holy Spirit provides understanding into the Word of God and the world around us. I think I pray for our children every day that they'd understand the world that they're in through, that they'd see themselves and the world around them the way that God sees it, because he's the author of truth.
Yes.
And it's a confusing place.
It is a very confusing place. And the fact that God is transcendent, that he has a third person perspective on the nature of reality, that's one of my very favorite things about the Lord. Like, the fact that he actually knows what's truth. Because it is so hard to sort through. I mean, your family tells you one thing, the world tells you something else.
You might
Your
read in a
peers
weird
tell you
books.
something else,
Yeah,
right? You read something else. Like, there's just so many competing worldviews out there. And so being able to say, but I know who does know the truth,
Mm-hmm. And now more than like you said, we live in the information age. I mean, we kind of divide ourselves into little tribes and stuff, but really you have access to a million points of view.
Yes.
And it's very overwhelming. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this phrase, chew the meat, spit out the bones, because it's an excellent example of what to even do about it.
Okay.
The place I heard it, do you remember where we picked that up?
Was that Dinosaur Guy?
Yeah, his name is
Sorry.
Kent Hovind, who is a fairly controversial figure in Christianity. I believe he's a Christian and doing good work, but I definitely don't believe in everything that he says or does. And he actually even spent about 9 years in prison fairly recently because of tax
evasion, right?
I don't know some shady bookkeeping, I think. And I think he still would defend whatever he did. I don't really know all the details, but he's the one that used that phrase, chew the meat, spit out the bones. And I came across his teachings, and they're all on YouTube, and you can find the people that are debunking Kent Hovind, and you can find his actual words. And I would encourage you to listen to his actual words and try this. Try to chew the meat and spit out the bones, because I think I've shared before, but the creation and evolution thing is the biggest thing that rocked my faith and made me wonder if I was on the right track in college. And so once I started praying about it, I feel like came across some of this stuff, and Kent Hovind's teaching about it really opened my eyes, and I feel like made me see that the Bible is science. It's just not a science book, but it makes sense. Yeah.
There, yeah.
And that creation makes sense, and that evolution really doesn't. I mean, there's some really great. I mean, there's lots of people that have debunked a lot of stuff, and I don't want this to turn into a science show, but I feel like Kent Hovind presents it pretty well. There's things in the science textbook that even normal, regular, secular scientists have said are not accurate, and yet they're still in there.
Right.
Like embryology, the bizarre idea that an embryo goes through all the stages of evolution from a fish to a human before it's born is that nobody, I don't think, believes that anymore, but I think it's still in the books, and so stuff like that, where it's just like, wow, and amazing. So, but there's definitely some bones there that I've spit to the side, and I do not believe, nor do I endorse.
Right. Yeah, well, and I think you do that with any teacher.
Yeah.
You look at the stuff and be like, well, and there's stuff that, there are many teachers that we really, really, really love, but that doesn't mean that we endorse everything that they say.
One of the other reasons I think this is so important too is back to kind of the big picture where we're talking about, evil distorting God's truth and with subtle changes. One of the things we like about Tai Chi and any other, fringe thing that we may like is
Us like fringe
yeah,
things?
is that God is in the redemption business and the restoration business. He's promised to restore the world to its former glory at the end of Revelation there, and bring heaven down to earth. But we believe that in the meantime, that's what redemption is on a personal level. Our souls
Right.
come to life when we accept God's forgiveness, and so and Jesus, and when he was here, he was preaching about his kingdom's here now. So like, there's all these little quickenings where God's like, yeah, I'll redeem that a little bit now ahead of time,
Right.
And so you could go looking for some of those pieces of meat among the bones, and I think they can be a blessing.
Yeah.
And I think God can redeem some of these things that Christianity's unfortunately turned their back on.
Right. And it makes me so sad, that we've kind of thrown the baby out with the bathwater. If we're talking about the bathwater scale again.
Yeah.
But, there are things that have been so helpful and beneficial to us, and we've seen God use them. As far as just the area of natural health, I know I come back to that one a lot, but that's just such a huge part of my life, because my autoimmune disease went from, having my bones dislocate all the time, being in a wheelchair, and
no energy, constant pain.
Right. Yeah. I couldn't even, it was like I had a TV on white noise turned up in my brain all the time because of the amount of pain I was in. I couldn't focus on anything else. And natural health has gotten me out of a wheelchair, and I'm not at 100% energy levels, but just even having the energy to be able to go from when I wake up in the morning until I go to bed. That's incredible. I never used to be able to do that. I had to take naps throughout the day,
Mm-hmm. And, unfortunately, sometimes natural health and natural medicine gets mixed up with Eastern mysticism and modern New Age. Like, there are definitely people who that's their thing. And there's a lot of goofy stuff in natural medicine that we don't even mess with. But the part that's like, hey, you know what? God in his foresight made these plants able to, like, aid your digestion, or maybe they're a pain reliever, or like, that's, that makes sense to us.
Right. Yeah, because we have a God of order, and we have a God who's meticulous in his creation.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. So if you look for the order and you've got your baloney grid glasses on, like we've talked about, you'll see it. And if you pray for that understanding, God will reveal it to you. And that's really the authority.
Right.
Whatever we say is whatever.
Right. Like Chuck Missler says, question everything. Like,
yeah. Yeah, he's a Berean, what's their main verse? It's something in Acts about how the Bereans questioned everything and searched the scriptures for themselves to find out if these things were true. Yeah. The Apostle Paul. They're like, let me check this out.
Right.
And they were commended for it. So
yes. So definitely check out anything we say,
Yeah.
Don't take our word for it.
My encouragement would be to, like we were just saying, look around and try to find the truth. If there's the real challenge, and this may be scary, but that's why it's a challenge. If there's an area where you've just turned a blind eye to, and I kind of ran out of time, but there's someone I know who his blind eye area was like science. I'm afraid if I go into there and start reading science books, I'm going to lose my faith because they're going to sell me on evolution. And I got so to the brink of that in college. And then a wise friend of his, it didn't have anything to do with me, I just know this story, encouraged him to do it. And he said once he finally got into there and overcame his fear, it strengthened his faith so much.
Right.
And there's this relief of like, oh, I was so scared of this thing. And the, you know, God's the God of, he made all that stuff. And he's the God of truth, and he's the God of information. I mean, DNA is a library, for crying out loud. I mean, he's, don't be, you don't have to be scared. Christians don't have to be scared.
Yeah.
And there's some scary stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I absolutely love. Like, Christians should be the most open-minded people ever because we have the God who created everything. So he is involved in everything. Like, there's no area of life that you can look at and go, well, God's not in that. There's no truth to be found there. Like, God is in everywhere. So not in a like new age. He's part of the earth everywhere, but in a like, he is omnipresent. He is involved in every single thing. So
and everything, like the great solution to the problem of suffering, which is another giant can of worms, but it's like there's no meaningless suffering. There's no meaningless rock or bug, you know, that's like, oh, that, who, if there were no more of those kind of bugs, it wouldn't matter. It's like, it all matters. God, he created the world the way it's, and it works.
Right.
Even in this post-flood destroyed world. It's pretty amazing.
Yes. So, I hope that you guys have an awesome Thursday and that you can kind of do that 1%, you know, push into where you're afraid of. Doesn't mean that you have to pick up 20 science books or whatever. Just do one little bit, you know. And pray for the Holy Spirit to show you where the best area is and to give you that baloney grid.
Yeah, thank you for listening so much, and we look forward to hearing you back here, having you back here tomorrow for Friday.
Evan's favorite day of the week.
That's right. What are we talking about tomorrow? We're going to talk about tying it all together tomorrow. Try to put a nice little bow on this whole Worldview week. We'll see how it goes.
All right, we love you guys. We will talk to you later.